Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are back with a very exciting foundation review. This is the Rodial Diamond foundation. It's actually the first product I think I've ever tried from Rodial. I think I may have tried some sort of skincare samples from them. It's definitely my first makeup purchase from the brand. So I saw this on Space NK. It's currently on Space NK as well as Rodial's own website, own brand website, and I kind of was really intrigued because the description sounded just right up my street. So the claims are that it is a lightweight, non-drying veil of natural radiance for medium to high buildable coverage with blurring actives and real diamond powder. Bougie. So I'll put the claims on the screen for you now. What I will say is it is expensive, a very expensive foundation. However, on Rodial's website, there is a little email address that you can click and request samples. So you give them an idea of your shade, what shade you think you'll be, and they'll send you a few samples, these little sachets. So I think that's a fantastic idea when most people aren't going to be able to try this foundation. It's going to be, you know, it's not sort of readily available in lots and lots of places where you can go in and swatch it or go and get a sample. So the fact that they will send those out to you, I think is amazing, and more brands should do that. So I sent off for a sample and I have been obsessed with it. So I would highly recommend sending off to that email address and getting a sample of it if you are interested in this foundation by the end of this review. The one thing that I will say is a challenge is the shade range. There are only 9 shades. However, it does appear to be a pretty fair shade range. Although there are only 9, it does seem that there are like 3 light to medium shades, 3 medium to tan shades, and 3 tan to deep shades. So if you're gonna only have a few shades, that's, I feel like, the correct way to do it. I'd much rather see that than see 20 shades, of which 15 are for white people and 5 are for people of color. But it is gonna be problematic for lots of people to get their right shades, hence why it's such a good reason to be able to send off and try 2 or 3. I was nowhere near the shade that I thought I would be based on the descriptions and swatches online. I thought I was actually gonna be shade 5 because that's described as a medium beige with golden undertones for medium olive tones. So that kind of sounds pretty much like my skin tone. However, I actually ended up being shade 2 of 9. I'm about an NC30, so that is a challenge. So shade 2 is described as light sand with neutral yellow undertones for fair skin. So to me, there's no way I'm fair. Like, there are obviously far fairer skin tones than an NC30, which is kind of my winter tone, and there's only 1 shade lighter than the shade that I'm wearing right now. So I think that is going to be a challenge for people, and it's definitely going to be a case of you need to pick the shade that is kind of closest to you rather than one that's going to be an exact match. So I actually got samples of shades 1 through to 6, so I'll show you the swatches in natural daylight of shades 1 through to 6, and you'll see that there are big jumps between shades, obviously because there's only those 9 shades. I didn't swatch or get samples of shades 7 to 9 because obviously I knew they would be far too dark for my skin. It was definitely a confusing process, and I would say that the shades run darker than they appear on the website. So for my shade Twinsies, my current shade is shade 2, and that is definitely the closest shade. I have tried them all, and my summer shade twins, I would say shade 5 is going to be my tanned summer shade. I have actually tried it. It's very good of an undertone for me. It's just far too dark for me right now. But once I get back from holiday, then shade 5 will be my summer tanned shade. So this is not a first impressions. I have tried this foundation about 5 or 6 times now. I feel like I have a good measure of it. I've really been enjoying it, and I'm ready to share my full thoughts with you. So let's get it on my face. So I'm just going to start off by priming with my MAC Prep and Prime. As per the usual, I had some people, I think obviously like new viewers or new subscribers on my last foundation review, I think my Clinique one, questioning about like just the way I do my foundation reviews, so why I use primer and why I don't set with powder. So just to clarify for anyone new here, This is how I've always done my foundation reviews. This is how I always will do my foundation reviews unless something dramatically changes with my skin. And the reason being that I always use primer in my day-to-day life, and I never set with powder. I have normal skin, I don't feel the need to set my face with powder, and I don't want to alter the finish of the foundation. My personal preference is that I always use a primer, so I'm not going to change that for review purposes because I feel like that will alter how I feel about the foundation, how I can kind of judge the foundation against the foundations I usually use and have used before. That is why, if you're wondering, that I make those choices to use a primer every time and to not set with powder, because I'm just trying to keep it as true to my personal preference and to what I do on a normal basis, so that my review is kind of as accurate as possible. And I'm sorry if you feel I should be doing it a different way, but that is how I choose to do it. I do, however, always do like half a face with a sponge and half a face with a brush, because I don't really have a preference with application. It just kind of depends on the foundation. So for that reason, I will usually do half a face with a sponge and half a face with a brush, unless I feel like there is one method that works way, way better. This is the amount that you get in these little sachet samples that you can send off for. You can see it's runny on the palette. It is quite a sort of thinner, runnier consistency, and that looks, I feel like when you squeeze out that sachet, I was like, oh, that is not enough for even one application, which was a bit disappointing, because you want to get at least a couple of applications to really see if you want to purchase it or not. But actually, I will show you, this is probably the equivalent of like one regular size pump or two very small pumps of foundation. So I'm going to go in with this side with the sponge first to show you. I'm just going to dab it in there. And this foundation, a little amount goes an incredibly long way. Can you see that? One little dab in there with my damp beauty sponge has done the whole one side of my face and a little bit more, to be honest. And that has kind of instantly given me a sort of medium to full coverage. So I'm just going to go one tiny little dot more, just where I kind of want a little bit extra coverage. And to be honest, this is probably too much. It's hard to do half a face, you know, but without adding too much. But that is then a full coverage with literally a couple of little dabs and using a sponge. So this is definitely a full coverage foundation with minimal product being used. So I'm just going to go in now on the other side with my Sigma F80, dabbing into what is left on the palette, and I'm going to buff that in. It does have a smell to it. It's kind of like a mild sort of sunscreeny type smell, even though it doesn't have sunscreen in it. But yeah, it's not strong. It's a sort of skincare type smell that I'm getting. Really nice and fresh, but it's definitely there. And again, with that sort of half of a layer, that's a pretty good medium. So I'm just going to go and dab a little bit more where I want to build up coverage. It applies nicely with both the brush and the sponge. I think with this one, given that you need so little and it really builds up very quickly to full coverage, I'd probably use a sponge, because I just find it gives you a more seamless finish, and it also helps you to not go overboard with how much you're using, so it controls it, and it's not like it's absorbing all the foundation and you're having to use loads. So my preference would probably be to use a sponge just to control how much product you're using. So this is the close-up with really low lights, and you can see it's got that gorgeous glow to it. It's looking very smooth. It's not exaggerating lines. It's not really soaking into my smile lines yet. We'll have a closer look at those once it's had a bit more time. It's got that lovely, healthy glow, and although I find this to be very like a proper full coverage foundation, it doesn't look heavy, it doesn't look unnatural, it looks like skin still, and I think it's just a really gorgeous natural finish. Okay, so we're back. I finished the rest of my makeup. I used my Natasha Denona contour sculpting powder today and my Natasha Denona super glow, and I used the peachy shade or the orangey shade out of my Berry Adore Anastasia blush trio, so that's this shade here. And then on my lips I've got the Bobbi Brown Crushed lip in the shade Mango Mood. Everything went on really beautifully on top of this foundation. It is a very strange one because although it looks really glowy and luminous, it feels like a matte foundation. It feels like it dried down, it's set down, and it feels like I've powdered it. Let me zoom you in a little so you can see the finish. Look how smooth it looks. I feel like it's so flattering on like my forehead lines, on my chin, my textured area. This part of my face just looks like butter. Although it stays like really nice and luminous on the skin and natural of a finish, it feels like I powdered it, or it feels like a matte foundation. It doesn't feel tacky at all or sticky at all. It doesn't seem to transfer. It literally feels like I set it, which I did not. It's definitely soaked into my smile line. This one, I think this smile line is like worse than this one, and it's definitely right in this one, but not really here, and it's not really in any other lines. Like, it's not in my forehead lines, it's not like in my chin lines or on my top lip or anything like that. It's literally just my deeper smile line, which is very normal. But yeah, although I wouldn't say at this point now it's dried down, it's been on for about half an hour, it's not dewy, but it's obviously this is highlighter, but it's very like luminous and natural and skin-like of a finish, even though it's got that really super full coverage. So I did take a flash photo and I think it looks pretty good. There's no SPF in here, so it's not one that you necessarily need to worry about as far as flashback. The shade looks really good on me. I definitely think this is an acceptable shade. It might not be absolutely perfect, but you know, there's few foundations that are absolutely perfect just using one shade. I think this is definitely my best shade for my winter skin. The time has just gone at 10:30, so I think we probably finished putting foundation on at about 10 o'clock. So we will give this the usual wear test and then we'll be back to give you my final thoughts. See you in a few. Hi guys, we are back and it is 6:10 in the evening. This is what we are looking like. It has been a busy day. I am waiting for the motorbike. It's been a really busy day and I am so tired. I'm sitting on the sofa and I'm like trying not to like fall asleep or like rest my face on the pillow or anything, because that wouldn't be fair. But it has been a very busy day. I had a doctor's appointment this morning, had some blood tests and all kinds of things going on at the doctor's. I had a school run today, a family Friday today, so we had to go and spend the afternoon with our kids in the school, which is always high energy, as you can imagine. I also had my little boy all day today, so we've been to his gymnastics class, so just a lot of running around today. Just a lot of like kid time, which always means sort of like contact on the face and just high energy testing for the foundation. So here's what we're looking like. Now in the mirror, I've just had a little look to see how we're doing at like the 8-hour mark. There's definitely some noticeable like shine around my nose area. But other than that, I think the thing that you can really notice here is that my blush is still absolutely there and prominent. So is highlight and my contour, and everything's looking really good. Obviously with the lights, let me turn these down and zoom in a little bit. Like, I do look a bit more shiny with the lights, but once you turn the lights down, you can see I'm not really shiny. You can see here with a bit of a zoom, it's just literally here, which is somewhere that I didn't really set with powder today. I just set my concealer on my nose and my under eye area. So if I had set here with powder, this wouldn't really be an issue. The tip of my nose is slightly shiny. I've got a bit of a cold at the moment, so there's a lot of nose wiping and stuff. So considering that, that area doesn't look bad at all. Everywhere else looks good. This area looks amazing. Everything is still fully on, like my contour, my blush, everything looks perfect, which is a really good sign that the foundation is still really there underneath. My chin's maybe ever so slightly starting to fade. That's the first area to go for me, is always like my nose and my chin. That's where it starts to wear. still really together there, but I mean, it just looks like, other than just this bit of shine here I could do without, and the tip of my nose I could do without, it looks flawless, absolutely smooth as anything. I love this foundation. I highly recommend it. It feels totally weightless. Even now, after 8 hours, it doesn't feel like I'm wearing foundation. And given the amount of coverage that you get, it is proper full coverage, no medium to full, it's full coverage on like one little pump. So although it is expensive, it will last you a very long time just using that one pump to get a full coverage. So that is something to consider. But I just think, you know, I looked in the mirror in the bathroom today when we were at gymnastics, and I was like, I feel like I look a good 5 years younger wearing this foundation. Just so smooth and flattering on lines and things. I just think it's beautiful. The finish is just perfect for me. It's exactly what I look for. It's like lightweight, it looks like skin, it looks glowy, but it feels like there's nothing on my skin. It doesn't feel wet or sticky, it doesn't transfer, it doesn't move, but it looks really luminous and healthy and youthful, and just such a pretty finish. I love it. I think it's just so beautiful. I think this will do really nicely on mature skin. I think this will do really nicely on people with pores and texture. I think it will do really well with combo. I think it will do pretty well with oily skin if you set with powder. I think dry skin will like it. It's just glorious. I am obsessed with it. I'm going to keep using it. I've got my full-size bottles now. I actually bought it in my summer shade and in my winter shade because that's how much I love it. It is 100% holy grail status, and if I'm still using this in a few weeks and still loving it, it's potentially a top spot of all time, because it's just beautiful, and it lasts well enough that I'll be confident wearing it in most occasions. But again, you know, I could have set it down with some powder, or maybe taken some powder and done a little something here if I was particularly concerned. But honestly, it just looks so beautiful in person. I don't know how easily it will be able to tell on camera with regards to finish, but it looks stunning. Just totally flawless and smooth and perfected, and just, I honestly feel like when I was looking in the mirror today, I was like, I look younger. So what more could you want? I really hope you enjoyed this review and found it helpful. If you've tried this foundation, please let me know, and let us know what kind of skin you've got down below so we can figure out who it works for and who it doesn't. Otherwise, I would love to see you in a future video. Take care for now. Bye 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 bye.